join us. I've started the recording. Go ahead and do the call to order.
We're going to call this meeting of the Regional Plan Committee of the City of Flagstaff, August 29th at 6:06 p.m.
The roll call is Allie Applin,
Here.
Paul Byer,
Here.
Tina Berger, Alicia Chi, Abe Estrella, Dirk Foreman,
Here.
Anthony Garcia,
Present.
Susie Garrettson, here, Robert Hamilton,
Here.
David Hayward,
Yep.
Michelle James,
Here.
Julie Lead, here, Rick Miller,
Here.
Tom Pearson,
Here.
Walter Phelps. Are you on, Walter? Not yet. Kim Robinson.
Here.
Great. John Van Landingham.
Here.
Diane Bosick.
Here.
Al White. And Christy Zeller. Okay, I'll keep informed if others join.
Thank you for coming back, everybody.
Welcome.
Some people might have just used the time period to flee town. Would anyone like to read the land acknowledgement?
Yeah, the city of Flagstaff humbly acknowledges the ancestral homelands of this area's indigenous nation and original steward. These lands, still inhabited by native descendants, border mountains sacred to indigenous people. We honor them, their legacy, their traditions, and their continued contributions. We celebrate their past, present, and future generations who will forever know this place as home.
Thank you, Anthony. Alrighty, we're gonna dive right in. Get started talking about some updates on the design of the document, the making it pretty,
Yeah.
and the public review process.
Great. So 2 things. First, your packet includes a couple of pages of the design concept, which includes colors and some sample pages of what we expect the plan to look like. One of the things to know is there's kind of 2, hi Tina, there's 2 consultants working with the city on this. There is Avenue Consulting, which is our graphic design firm. So their role is to create these layouts and help us kind of take this more dressed down Word document and get it into the more well-designed and laid out format that you see here. And then the second is Sonia London Hall, who has curated all the public art that was created at events throughout the first phase and the second phase of the project. And she's curated that to a set of community created art that was just, made on the fly, but that will be used in chapter dividers and in other places to kind of show a real more hands-on feel to material and placing it. And I think we have about 35 pieces of art that were created through that process that were people filled out the release forms. We know who belongs to what, so we can properly attribute them in the plan. So if there is any feedback on this from an accessibility standpoint or just how the visuals lay out that people would like to talk about, do so. Any thoughts? Love it, hate it, questions?
I was just in the memo, talked about how you decided to reorganize things from that way to something else, right?
No, the plan organization's is a little bit different. And that's kind of the next item.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this is just about like, how does it look? It's gonna kind of look like this.
Be organized.
Yeah, this is just kind of how it will look.
Get off the hook, the committee is not going to attempt to design.
We're not gonna design by.
Arts. I heard actually.
Yeah, that's okay. The public review process, sir?
Yeah, so the plan that the public is gonna see for the 60-day review will be in this format. the plan you're still reviewing because we're content focused, not design focused, is gonna still be in Word. The 60-day public review, we are working very hard to get to a point where on October 20th, we are starting that 60-day review with the goal of it being done by December 19th. During the 60-day public review, Elsa has worked very hard to get a particular venues and get workshop dates set. And she's actually successfully gotten all 4 workshop locations booked and dates booked. It's very hard to do that, especially during election season. So I would like to give a lot of kudos to Elsa. She's also found, I think, 4 or 5 of the 7 locations. Is that right?
Yeah, for the office.
For office hours. So we're still looking for a few locations for us to have a Friday set of office hours. This is something we did with the South Side plan too, where we just brought a few key staff people and we were available for sit downs. So we could go to people's specific questions, answer the what about my property that I own over here kind of questions, kind of like a front counter interaction about the plan. So we would plan to have 7 of these available over the 60 days and have them be Fridays from
11 to 2.
11 to 2. So they're kind of, if you're on your lunch break or you're out running errands, you can come by. We're having them all over town. Murdoch Center, and not just at City Hall, but both libraries, the Murdoch Center, the Chamber has that nice meeting room. They're gonna host one of them.
County.
The Totems Auditorium at the county. We're trying to find maybe a spot out east, yeah, or west, further in Belmont, where we could sit down and have a meeting space available. But that's kind of where we're heading with those initial outreaches. We'll also have kind of an opening and a closing webinar for the 60 days. So we'll right away on the 21st have an evening webinar where we're really just telling people, like, what does it mean that this is the 60-day public review? What are you actually being asked to review and comment on? So that one will be fast and that one will be like maybe no more than 30 minutes. We'll record it, we'll put it on YouTube, and then we'll also use it for little like snips and audio for other kind of advertising that we'll do during the 60 days. And then the closing one will really just be able to tell people kind of a broad summary of what we've been hearing so far and encourage them to make sure they get their comments in by the night. That one will be in early December before people get too crazy with holiday stuff. So that is the plan for now. We're also going to be tabling anywhere we can find a chance to kind of be out in the community, and that actually starts this weekend. Melissa Shaw has got a whole process going on right now with the comprehensive plan for the county as well. And we're going to share some space at the fair at her booth.
Come visit the county booth at the.
To be able to talk about both the comprehensive plan and the regional plan with folks as they're walking around. So that's kind of our plan right now. The last thing I should mention is we are going to do what I call the tour day commissions, and we've already sent out an email to all the commission and board liaisons at the city and county saying, if you want us to come do a regional plan presentation for your commission or board, get us booked October, November, early December. Here's the window. Give us dates. And so about 6 commissions of the 22 have already responded with dates they'd want to have a topic specific staff presentation for their committee.
Sarah, do we want to mention though, how people will be able to?
Yeah, so maybe you should explain that part. The place we're gonna host the document for comments, we will have like a PDF you can download, but the county has a platform that I'll let Melissa explain a little more about.
And some of you might have used this, but we've used this for some of our area plans, and it's basically to the user. This looks like a site where you go in and you'll see the document, but you can actually zoom in to a sentence or a word or a paragraph and type a comment right there. And then on our end, we are able to download all of those into a spreadsheet format. So it's a really convenient tool for us to take public comments in one, and actually we would actually love to direct everyone to that one document and emails. It's really easy for people to use. Yeah, it's actually we're using that site now to host our comprehensive plan website, and there are documents on there now you can go and see. So it's really easy for people. Just to kind of let you know that would be ideal for us as staff to get comments that way. So if we get 500 comments, we can see them all in one place.
People can see each other's comments.
Yeah, you
right?
can see each other's comments, you can respond to comments. It's, it's great technology, yeah.
So are there any questions or thoughts, things we missed in getting ready for the 60-day public review? If you hear of any opportunities, and online folks too, if you've got thoughts or things you want to throw in. We are still working towards getting a lot of this out. We're glad that we have all our dates down, of course. That'll mean we have to be finished on time, which is a thing we'll talk about tonight too. So yeah, I think that's everything I had for that item. Are there other questions?
Any questions? All right, well, we'll talk about the plan, organization, and revision of the implementation guidelines.
Right.
There's a memo discussing in your packet where the staff is talking about what they want to talk about here. So,
Yeah. I'm also pulling this up now so people just kind of see what we're talking about. So when we started in the spring, we were working on a chapter by chapter basis. We were fitting everything that belonged in a topic in the chapter. Because we wanted to see it holistically all at one place. I kept that organization when I sent out the draft plan in July for the 3-week staff review. Staff found that actually really hard to use and think about if like, what if I were applying this to a case? Or what if I were trying to explain this at the counter or use it for creating a staff report? They actually found that really difficult to dig through. They said like, gosh, I was 30 pages in before I found what I needed. And that doesn't make it a very usable document from that standpoint. So we went back through it with the writer editor and we've come up with kind of an alternative organization. And that's important for the implementation guidelines part tonight, and I'll explain why. The first thing we thought is the writer editor and I talked and she said, what if we could get everything everybody needs to really pay attention to in 30 pages? And that might really help people use the document and dive in right away. And we got away from, like, the explanation is all good. It would all still be kept, but it would be when people are ready to get more in depth on the why. So what we would propose is to have the first 2 chapters be the ones we'd expect, a background and how the plan works introduction, but then jump right into a chapter that is just very minimal executive summary and the goals and policies. Here's why we care about this. Get straight to the point of where are the goals and policies, because those are what will get used in examining development cases and zoning code amendments and anything else related to that. We also need some policy maps, so it won't just be goals and policies, like the network illustrations for functional class and foots and bikeways and enhanced crossings, parks and open space, all kind of set priorities and policies. So some of those maps have to come up to that chapter as well. And then also getting into the future growth illustration, how to apply land use framework properties. And we do think that if we can pull those things up, we can achieve that goal of trying to get the most important 50. If all you had time to read was the first 50 pages, you would get 90% of what you really need to know about the plan. What that does do is it's going to pull apart the implementation guidelines and the policies. Not that they are not, having a rational nexus between the two, but they will physically be separated in the document. So people won't be reading them the way we created them. So that's why we brought back to you a full list of implementation guidelines, because where we expect those to be nested is all those larger explanatory narratives would be in a section called implementation section. We would keep those all together, and then they would be followed by implementation guidelines or best practices, whatever we end up calling them. And then the strategies or action items can all be right there.
Can you say that again?
Yes,
That's important for me. I
I got it up on the screen too. That, is it not showing?
On that screen.
People online can see it. Maybe you have to share that screen. Change the room setup while we're on the break.
It might be that.
I'll give up. But I'll say it again. So we have an introduction section.
No.
Okay, good. A policy section, that's all the goals and policies, and then the land use framework. And then we have an implementation section that is where we put those things that are really for staff, but really for anybody who wants to understand the intent, but not, those don't go into relevant cases or other things like that. So that will pull some things apart and put some other things together in a different way. And I just wanted to get this idea in front of everybody and hear thoughts and concerns. Up if you like that, because that's what I expect to provide you as the full draft. And it's not the way the current plan's organized, but there are other plans in Arizona that are organized this way, and we looked at a few of them. And they do really like get to the point very quickly in a way that I think will help make the document more usable.
Tell you when I use it, when I go to read it, I go to the back and I read the list of the goals and policies. And then if I need more information on our kind of sections, because I want to kind of get the why are we doing this part of it, then I'll go back to the narrative for those particular sections.
Yeah, right now that list of goals and policies in the current plan is like Appendix B. Thing like that. Oh, Christy Zeller's joined too. So people know. So that's, yeah, and that I think is how a lot of people who use it in a, functional way and aren't just reading it to understand the document are actually using it.
Yeah, I mean, if like someone's doing something with a industrial space, right, they don't need to read the section on parks and like recreation, right? So they can, they can focus on the bits that are kind of more high to them.
Michelle has her hand up. Michelle has her.
Sorry, Michelle.
So you talked about an implementation chapter. It's in the implementation chapter.
It'll have it'll be like a section. So it will have like chapter 5, 6, 7, 8 in it. And that's where it would have, like chapter 5 would have narrative section, which is the part we spend a lot of time on. And then either implementation guidelines or best practices, whatever we decide is the most appropriate term. And then action items and strategies. That would let us put each chapter kind of in the most detail. The most detail will be later, essentially, by organizing it that way. And it makes a clear difference between what is the stuff we look at when we're doing a zoning case or a development case, and what is the stuff that staff wants, so we fully understand what we mean and how we intend to go about doing it. This is the fun part, because no two plans in Arizona are organized the same way. It's just everybody makes these choices based on how they think their community is going to use it and how to make the document. So it is a judgment call. So we wouldn't make it in a vacuum. I want to hear from folks. And if we put it out for the 6-year review and the public has a crazy bad reaction to being organized this way, then it can be reconsidered. This is just a for now call.
And I kind of also like that if staff has said that they like it this way, then that makes sense too, because you guys use it more than.
Without actually seeing it, it's hard to know whether it's a good idea or not. But the concern I would have is that it fragments the topic different. I can see myself or other people thumbing their way back and forth trying to find things rather than having them all under their own topic. That would be a concern.
I think that talking to our writer editor, they would recommend that if we go this route, that we create internal hyperlinks, so that if people want to find the implementation guidelines that go with this section, it takes it right to them. You know, treat the document we hope will be accessed more electronically than on paper. Like paper, you might be forced to flip, but we can make it more electronically accessible. The writer we're working with has already said she's in favor of more hyperlinks. And one of the things I wrote in the draft plan that haven't seen what my legal review of this is yet, is I want to make sure that it's really clear that if we needed to update a URL or remove or change a hyperlink, that not an amendment, that we can just do that as staff and fix it. And so we can document very live. The current plan wouldn't let me even touch a hyperlink without a plan amendment, so, or a misspelling without a plan amendment. So we're gonna move into a much more modern document management standpoint with what we're trying to do here, I think.
Sarah, are you still planning on putting together the desktop guide, the companion guide that goes along with it, where it just contains the goals and policies as separate?
I mean, I think if we might look at this and decide if that's necessary. or not. So, not for the 60-day review.
Right.
Any other comments on the proposed organization of the document?
Any from the folks online? Christy and Caroline, it says Ally and Robert.
This is Robert. I would tend to agree with the staff who are going to use it the most and give them the most weight.
You scroll it back again. I'm just.
Talk about the name changes.
Yeah, let's do that.
Two suggested name changes from implementation guidelines to best practices and strategies to action items. Give us the background on the suggestions.
So the staff actually had a lot of ideas of what those sections should be called. They're not part of our current plan. And so there was quite a variety of comments, and kind of the most sensible ones. They said, you know, best practice implementation guidelines sound like they will, the word guideline made people concerned it would be applied to things, where a best practice is something we use as staff. And so they thought that would be a better, you know, way to describe how it gets used, is like, this is the best way to approach it. But if there's some alternative way or alternative technology or, you know, other trade-off that needs to be considered, there's flexibility around that, is kind of how they would think through the term best practices. And then strategies, they said, you know, this is really a list of action items, of things that like we want to do and show we have accomplished in implementing the plan. And so I just felt it was a little less passive to call it an action item, a little more like, yeah, we're gonna get this done. This is a thing to do for the community. So that was just like some tone and feedback from the team. There were other ideas too, but just wanted to provide that feedback that people internally said, like, is this really the best way to describe this? And so I know Michelle and Susie looked at it and sent some comments about that today. But it's very open. I mean, this is not a required part of the plan. It's just us finding a way of describing what we mean in more detail. So whatever people think is the best language is got to communicate to a lot of different people. At the same way.
What was your thoughts, Michelle, Susie?
Well, you know, when I hear the term best practices, I think of it being kind of like in a field, and there's been lots of research about it, and it's considered the best practices to do because of all the past experience. I don't look at these as based on that, you know? It seems to me like it's based, it's really, to me, is guidelines, but I'm okay with another word, but, and you were gonna say something.
Yeah, when I hear that, I think of who's best practices, who decides that, you know? I mean, when, the way she's describing it in a science-based area, I get that. But as a citizen, just a normal person, not a planner, you know, or whatever, that's, my brain catches right there and I just go. "Side there." You know, so I like guidelines better.
I like implementation better. To me, it's just a clear statement that we're gonna implement this as opposed to also a best practice, which to me seems kind of optional.
Yeah, 100% agree. I don't like the fact that it feels optional.
The guidelines optional.
The guidelines, yeah, I mean, they are,
They are optional.
they're things we want to be doing most of the time, but we could opt out and do something else if we think something better gets us to the right result.
It's not a doing
Yeah.
word either.
Yes.
Whereas like implementation is a doing word.
An action item.
I agree.
Call them just guidelines, we could drop the implementation part.
I think guidelines are actually more appropriate because they're really just examples of how the policies could be implemented. They're not going to be requirements.
I had written down implementation options as a potential new term, different term. The other part for me that really jumped out was that it felt like we'd flipped the importance of them. So strategies felt like the thing that was more like best practices previously, right? And implementation guidelines felt like the thing that these are the things that we're going to take action on. So it kind of flipped the importance to a certain extent of the strategies and the implementation guidelines. I definitely have been understanding the strategies as being, you know, kind of options for ways that we could achieve the implementation guidelines, and this really kind of flips that on its head.
Yeah, and I mean, we're gonna talk about strategies and action items, whatever we're going to be calling them a little bit too, but there's so many of them. I do feel like as we were developing them, we weren't really brainstorming. We were not doing any winnowing down of what's actually important and what has to get done for the plan to be implemented. And I'm hoping we'll have some conversation about that tonight, because I think they're equally important. They just, they mean something different in different contexts. I think about it this way, the last regional plan, one of the first things I was told was we didn't adopt any strategies because there were so many of them and they were like over 300. So we're in way better shape just as a starting list, just to put everyone's mind at ease on that. But there were so many, they just threw out the whole strategies chapter. But then one of the key things that happened was there was actually something really important we needed to get done that I can think of on the transportation side, which was a transportation master plan. And for 10 years, that didn't make a top priority list anywhere because we had not really tied those two things together very well. Now we never forgot about it. Staff remembered we wanted to do it and that it's important, but it was hard to get the attention on it. And now we've got a grant from the federal government to help us do it in the very near term, like in the next 2 to 3 years, which is better timing. But I think not having strategies, not having them prioritized, was a real gap in the plan. And I think a lot of the things we looked at as implementation guidelines now were actually embedded in all the policies in a bunch of different places in a way that was really repetitive and difficult to use. So, I mean, I think of the implementation guidelines as if I were faced with an example of something someone wanted to do, and I looked at the policies and I thought, it's not really clear to me if this is meeting the intent, the purpose of this policy. I might go to the implementation guidelines and say, well, what is the staff direction about this? And how close is what I'm looking at to that direction or not? And like, is it just another way? Is it most appropriate for this parcel, or is it like, it's a point of comparison? Not quite the same as like the way we treat it, if that makes sense. So just thought on those things. And obviously any of those things that show up in implementation guidance are something you would expect the city or county to do when we're doing a project. We should really be making sure that they're checked off in that scenario.
Yeah, I mean, not all of it is about viewing entitlement applications, right? There's plenty of stuff in here that's basically things that saying the city should go out and do, right, over the next 10 years. It's got nothing to do with someone comes in for
Yeah.
a plan amendment.
Is there a consensus on this?
Who doesn't want to see them? Who likes them, the names the way they are?
Are you talking about
The
implementation?
proposed ones or the?
Yeah.
Who likes the ones that we had, the implementation guidelines and the strategies?
Or what if it's 50?
Current names.
Oh, I'm fine.
I like action items though.
Yeah, I like
Yeah,
that.
exactly. I'm with Diane.
I like that better than strategy.
Consider one is.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's consider, so you guys get one of yours and
Sure. That's great.
I like David's way of leading, and he's just gonna laugh because this is way.
we do implementation guidelines and action items. Everyone all right with that?
Yeah.
I agree.
Direction.
All folks online agree? Ally? I see
I
thumbs up
agree.
on.
Yep.
Think you can, the list of quote action items will be long enough that
Yeah,
they
we'll,
become optional by
Well-
default.
we'll get into that a little bit too. But so now on the implementation guidelines, which we've decided to keep calling them that, the writer editor looked at them and thought they were pretty inconsistently organized as sentences and kind of made her feel like there could be more consistency. So she had recommended that we basically turn them into a bulleted list that starts very clearly with implementing department staff should, like, made them something that's about who's doing it. Oh, sorry.
Millions.
That was just me as a.
You're like, what? So I wanted to show you like old format and new format so that when you get it back in a week or so, that you're not surprised that they look pretty different. And then the new format also includes incorporation of most of the staff comments that we've received, though I'm still working on like a dozen or so that need more in-depth discussion with staff. So they're gonna look closer to this. There'll still be some changes coming, but you know, that's just a way of looking at them. So it gives you a chance to look at them too and decide, can they stand alone? Like, if we pull them apart from the policies, do they all still make sense?
So they're never gonna be side by side with the policies?
If we reorganize the way we just talked about.
Be like an opinion, kind of pull them all together.
Yeah, we might.
Like a
use an
user's guide?
appendix. Yeah,
Okay.
or like something like that.
We'll be spelling out the policy, right? Like, right now it says policy AH.
No, we would not.
Why not?
Because that's just repeating something that's in another chapter, probably. I mean, I think we might, as Michelle said, maybe we'd have an appendix that says, here's all the policies, here's how these guidelines go with the policies, but
On the online version, could you make it so they could click on that and it would come up?
yeah.
So with the, now they're organized like, right, 30 or so are all on their social and economic systems, just right at the top of the page. Are those headings still gonna be there?
Yes, because they're gonna be embedded in a chapter called Political and Economic Systems.
So this won't be a single chapter with all of, this will just be nice.
Each chapter will be
So
set
good
this way.
question.
Okay.
I'm trying to help you guys visualize something I haven't done yet.
That's nice.
Yeah, so it will be in the context of all of that information that we've been working on refining over the last few months, but won't necessarily be nested policies. And if there are concerns about that, I want to hear it, but I just, like, if you look at them and think like, I read them and think these could stand alone. And they might not need the nesting, But but we could be wrong. We're just reading it one way. There's lots of ways to look at it.
So I'm trying to stitch together Diane and Paul's questions. So it's gonna say social and economic systems. Is it just gonna be a long list of implementing department staff shoulds?
Yeah.
One after the other, so affordable housing is not gonna be separated from or called out from whatever NE is or CD is.
I think we'd keep it at the goal level. It would be affordable housing implementation guidelines. And then the should would be everything you see here under goal AH1, AH2. And it might even have like some distinctions if there's county and city only ones under those.
It strikes me that it's gonna be maybe better for the staff, but for somebody coming in from the outside, looking at it for the first time, it's gonna be confusing.
I don't know if it will be or not. I mean, the question is, can I try it? Well, if I send it out for the 60-day review and all we get is comments that this is crazy and confusing, then we can clearly go back to another organization.
I had to keep going back and comparing, going back to the chapters, because I wanted to see what the header was, the policy was. That's just the way my brain works. I wanted to make sure there was a logical link there. And so,
I agree.
I don't know, stylistically, I still think having line narrative there, is affordable housing H.1. Short bullet, then you see the logic. It's kind of divorced from the logic.
It is. The laundry.
Take something, Paul?
I don't, I guess I kind of like it, but I can understand your concerns. So I don't want to digress for what I was going to raise my hand for before was, will these be numbered in some way if people want to refer to any of these guidelines? You know, they just have to quote it, or can they say guideline, social economic system guideline 12?
Yeah, it's, the guidelines, it's not, I would just say people should quote them.
Okay, that's it.
Like they're that level of detail down, they're not gonna show up the reason we give things like a code is so we can shorthand it in a staff report. But the way we usually do
Very
that
So
is we say like goal AH and we say it fully the first time and then we use it as the shorthand. We have to keep talking about it.
I don't know that there's a problem with having, you mentioned Sarah having it somewhere twice. Problem with having the policies all at the beginning in what would, there's an executive summary. Then this section still having policy at the top. Those boxes, right? An extra sentence. Those boxes.
Exactly.
From staff's perspective, like, what's the hang? Like, why can't we just do that?
It's,
You like it?
yeah, I don't like the repetition, but I could hang mostly if we wanted to just make sure we repeat the goal. Like that probably would be, if that would be a compromise, I think that there's not that many goals. There's only 23 of them. And so,
I can understand from somebody who's gonna use this all the time, while the repetition would get in the way. But we're making this for for everyone's consumption. We have to consider it.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if I was using it, I'd have to go back and then H2 was. Even if I was just to be like, am I in the right place?
Yeah.
And if David can't figure it out.
Smart.
Yeah. What are the smart people gonna do?
It seems like it needs to be usable for not only the users, the staff and the developers, but also understand what's happening to their community. So to me, it really needs to be easy for the public.
So could I bring it back to you with just the goals for the next version? And if we don't like that, if we think it's too divorced from what we see here, then I can go back and put the policies back in. But I have the opportunity to like show it to you a different way and then see if we like it or not. You know what I mean?
Sounds fine. So you can definitely get rid of the old form.
Yeah, the old format can go. Everybody's happy with that?
Just as a matter of process, Sarah, so the next time we see this, won't it be in a completed document that we are intending to up or down, right? But we're
And
gonna,
of course, you can make some modifications to it. You can say like, yeah, can we just get these couple changes or key things in there?
I was just thinking if, if this is going out for a 60-day review with the public, we want to make sure they understand it. So maybe it's one format for the 60-day, and then when you put it electronically, it can be changed into something that's a little smoother, pull out boxes to explain things or, I just want to make sure the public understands what goes on for the 60 days. That they can follow it like we did.
Like that idea, but at the same time, I want to keep it consistent for long-term develop for the public. But I do like that idea, at least they could read it during that time. But it might be behoove us to keep it the way it's gonna be in the long form during the public review, so that way they can get the truth.
Yeah, it's, I know you are all now very well informed. You spent a lot of time here in this room. And there is like, I do feel like sometimes I am always open to lots of changes between a public review and a final, because I think it shows you heard people and you listened to the comments and you did more work. Like staff is going to be doing case study reviews while the public is reviewing in the more open format. We're going to find ideas about like what could somebody propose and start testing it and thinking about what staff reports look like. That's gonna be like our internal process. So we're gonna come across some things we missed in the first few rounds, because we're actually gonna say, what if we had to apply this tomorrow? And create like a report of what we learned from case studies. But the public's gonna have some ideas too, of things we missed or things that are hard to understand. So there's always changes, but if you make it too different, people think you changed everything, right? So that's why I do want to at least get it in like that's why I showed you the design work and was like, it's gonna look more like this and less like what we've been doing, because people won't track changes once you make it pretty as easily. People just get stuck on the visual and they don't do that as well.
Like it's just a learning curve and we're in the beginning process of it. I remember when people were explaining an electric car to me and how against it I was until I sat in one and then drove it. And then I realized it made a lot more sense. So maybe when we see it, it'll be different.
But this is good to hear like the concerns and like what we should be paying attention to, because once we finish up all these edits, then we've got to move everything around. So we didn't want to spend the time of moving everything around if there was just wholehearted opposition to the document organization or the way the guidelines look. I know that Michelle and Paul sent me comments on a lot of the guidelines today, and some of those I want to take to the staff, because like some of your questions, I'm like, I don't know why this language is better than this language. I changed it because I had staff comments. So I'll have to go ask staff, like, is this better and why, and get answers. So maybe when I send out the plan, I'll send you like some written answers to those and like say, here's why they think, oh, we went back to the other way.
Does that mean we need to submit any comments on those to you? I thought we're gonna go through those.
We can go through them tonight too, but I'm saying if they're already written ones, if you don't want to bring them up verbally, I'll still follow up on them.
I think the plan that was that we were, this is what Michelle discussed, that we weren't gonna go through them. We'll go through them in detail when we do the next meeting, when we get to review the whole document. That'll give you time to do that. That's time to get the legal review back. And then if you want to go do the comments in writing instead of throwing them all.
Or if there's ones you want to discuss, if they're big things, you think like, oh, there's actually a whole thing we have to talk about here.
One thing I noticed was, definitions. There was lots of stuff in this that names of things and, all kinds of definitions.
There's a glossary that's not this though.
Yeah. So, but really, like when I'm reading a book and there's something, it'll have a little asterisk by it and okay, I need to go here and look. Are you gonna put asterisk or something?
We can hyperlink the glossary.
Okay.
This is a high-tech doc, the writer editor. So we will hyperlink glossaries, terms to the first time they're used in the document.
Okay.
At least the first time they're used,
Yeah, do it every time.
if we can.
Everything. We'll move on to action items.
Well, let me bring up one thing. Sorry, the one comment I did want to talk about that was in the written comments I got so far is language around housing. We had originally defined 3 terms to talk about housing. We talked about attainable housing, affordable housing, like big A affordable is kind of what we say it sometimes, and workforce housing. So workforce housing is tied to employment or wages. Or proximity to workplaces. Attainable housing is, can everyone afford something that's appropriate for them in our community? And affordable housing is, do we subsidize housing that assists those that need financial assistance to make housing available to them? But we also had a lot of ideas about other terminology, so the draft kind of went into other directions because there were times we really need to be talking about housing supply. All of those other categories are part of housing supply, but housing supply also includes work kinds of housing that don't meet any of those other definitions. So through the edits that staff was making, I think we ended up actually understanding that even internally, we were struggling with consistency between those definitions, and the housing staff and I have been working this week to get that cleaned up and be like, here we mean attainable, here we mean supply, here we mean workforce, and make sure we're not mixing and matching those terms. So I hope when you see these implementation guidelines and those words show up, they might look different next time you see them because we're doing a real cleanup to make sure that it means what it's supposed to mean.
So, I work in real estate and taught for years. So if we're gonna start talking about affordable housing or attainable, or we probably need to go to ADOH, Arizona Department of Housing, making sure that we're on the same page with our definitions, because we don't want to get in to that position where we're talking about something and all of a sudden we got a backstep. So I would refer to the ADOH and kind of go through that a little bit and make sure that we're on the same page here. We can't reinvent that. That's a state law. It's federal, it's everything. So just a point of difference.
All right, everyone. I think we'd be nice to take a break back at 7:05 before we talk about action items.
Strategies anymore?
My comments are not.
Yeah, sounds good.
Going to go. We're gonna talk about some strategies. Everyone wants to. Red pen, axe, the grenades. Oh, you're gonna call the herd in the forest.
Yeah, so
Sheep.
Share up right now.
So, the plan, yeah, I said at the beginning, as we've been working through strategies, we just kept adding them, and we didn't really do any hard look at them. As we were building the list, we just said, let's keep building the list. Let's keep doing it chapter by chapter. I did go through the list of strategies, and remove redundant ones. So when the same thing showed up in more than one chapter, I've already deleted it and tried to combine them, but, I guess we're gonna call them action items going forward. Right, I looked at some other places and how they organize their action items and tried to think of how we could take 132 things that we think we'd like to do when we think about plan implementation and make it meaningful. There's never gonna be enough money, staff, time to do all 132 of these things. I mean, that's just how a lot of this works. So how do we make sure that something that's really important doesn't get bumped down the list because it's expensive or hard to do, right? We really want to make sure that this list of strategies or action items becomes, a list that ends up in front of budget teams, ends up in front of work planning, and that directors and managers are really aware has importance for the long-term future of the community. So I started by just taking them and breaking them into 5 types of actions. And I did this based on the way Phoenix, like it's a modification of the way Phoenix organized their strategies. But I said there's planning things, like we need to keep making other plans of certain kinds. There are code things that are like we actually have to update or adopt new regulations. There's funding things where we need to be bonding or get a grant or get funding. There's partnerships, so we need to maintain or build new partnerships. And then there's things where it's like, people need to be more educated on this for us to be able to make progress. So that is kind of where I left things. Staff has not done a ton of review of. They have reviewed the language, but they haven't thought about the timelines. And so ahead of getting staff too far into the strategies, wanted to hear from the committee a little about where the priorities are. So me and Elsa have access to this whiteboard. I sent you a link to it. And what we'd like to hear from you is maybe on each of these chapters, what are the 1 or 2 things you think are the highest priority? Like, we've got to get that done. It can't wait until 2045 or 2035 when we're updating the next plan. I use the example of a streets master plan. That was a high priority in 2014, and yet we're in 2024 and we're just getting to it. But because we didn't have priorities, because we didn't actually adopt the strategies, it was in my memory only, and other people having to remind instead of it just being very explicit. The other thing about prioritizing is we can revisit priorities. And when we set the way that the plan will be updated, we could set it up so that as part of the annual report, they come back and look at these priorities in detail every time. I've kind of linked monitoring to these action items. That's more the way that the county does their annual reporting. Right now, the annual report for this regional plan that we have currently is 97 metrics, 93 of which didn't change at all or have any significant trend over 6 or 7 years when we were looking at them. And so I would think that the annual reporting becomes how many high priority implementing action items are underway or are completed. And then how many medium, how many low, but also then not to get rid of metrics. I sort of went back through the annual report and found like the 10 metrics that actually seem to change in meaningful ways. and said, maybe we do less data reporting, which takes a lot of time, and we do more action reporting. So that's kind of tied together in what I'm proposing here. But what I'm hoping is if we can talk through these in like 4 categories. What's high, what's medium, what's low, and what's not needed really for, and by that, I don't mean like not needed for anyone to do, but low relevance to the plan or likely to be, not likely to be implemented or to be feasible. Like, because some of the things I think we put in here are pretty aspirational. And do we want them as action items, or are they things that if it didn't get done in the next 10 years, wouldn't weigh heavily on how well we implement? So, let me zoom in a little more.
I have a question. Just trying to understand the assignment here. 132, you say you want to get down to 20. Are we going to focus on the 20 in high priority? Is that our?
Yeah, I'd love to get 20 in the high priority column.
So is that going to be our focus on this exercise? Or are you going to, we're going to try to populate 132 across 4 spots?
Well, I'd like to just get focused on the high priority ones and like hear about what you guys think are the highest priorities. And then, but in discussion, we might bump some down. Also, I think I'd like to hear the tales, like when you went through this list of 132 things, what did you think? Is that really a plan issue? Or is that just a thing we'd like to do? And then what are the things you think like, yeah, that's a top thing to get done? But if you guys come up with no more than 20 high priority items. And this could be, depending on your feedback today and what we take back and hear from staff too, I'll come up with kind of how that might appear in the next plan.
132, is that how many items were in the last chapter?
Yeah, how many are in here?
There were 132. Okay.
There's
I didn't
130.
count them.
I did.
So the idea is to do this by chapter, right? So
Yeah.
Growth and land use, that makes it easier
Yeah,
by chapter.
yeah, but I want no more than 20 total.
Yeah, well,
So like that,
we'll do.
yeah. And if we can't get there, that's fine. If we only get to 10, or if we say there's actually 25 and we'd like staff to whittle it down a little more, that'd be great. But what I would propose to do with those 20 is create an appendix with them where actually staff describes in more detail how we could get it done. Like, does some kind of pre-work planning, and that we could appendicize that to the document. That appendix we could update, like when we check something off, we could add in the next 3 things, right?
So this puts this in perspective. I'm gonna have plans for these. So to my mind, that says, let's just get rid of the other 3. Don't, because then I don't want to argue, is this low or medium?
Yeah.
What are the 20?
None are the highs.
It's either high or not.
Yeah, let's just high and
Get that.
Sarah, can you lead this then, this exercise?
Yes, happy.
Sarah, is it likely, when I read through these, the person or persons that can make this happen, many of them aren't staff. So how does that factor into this? Like, for example, when you talk about support changes to federal and state laws for control of vacation rentals, I don't really see staff.
That's the communication, or the civic engagement section of the city does do that. They have a paid lobbyist and they work with the lobbyist, and they get new legislation sent to them by our lobbyist, and then they send it out to us and say, hey, what are you hearing?
Well, there is a person that can lead that charge.
Yeah, I can tell you there's nothing on this list that it wouldn't fit in somebody's job description.
Okay, that's great to know.
Just, yeah, a good question. I didn't put it here because we started making that list, and then some things had like 15 departments and some had 2. And then we're like, well, how did the directors even know these ideas exist? And it wasn't far enough along to feel like that was something we were ready to share out yet.
I think that the problem, I just want to clarify, like, it might be a section or a division's work program, but some may require additional staff. It might be that part of the ask would be that you'd have to get staff either to complete that, or it might be staffing resources or a consultant. So there's sometimes a financial component to talk about. And I think that's where Sarah was alluding when you talk about the priorities. Something might be a high priority, but there's a lot of funding that goes with it. And so it kind of lowers on the priority because you have to wait until you get that funding. But then an opportunity like the Master Streets and Highways plan. We had an opportunity for a grant. Well, now that's rising up priority because we've found $1 million to complete that where we had
Strange how that.
$100,000. So that's kind of how these things work, but.
Yeah, I was kind of reminding somebody who was offering some comments that, some of why we write some of these the way we do is to get them to be out there. So when we apply for grants, we can say, that strategy's in our regional plan. We're in the time frame where we would want to finish it, you know, like,
Or a staff person requests for budget team.
yeah,
Or
or
we can say, we have these priorities in our regional plan, but we need a senior planner to complete it. Then that helps us make a pitch to our budget committee and to council to fund
And
those.
as a citizen, it makes me feel good to say, you need to do this because it's in our plan.
Well, we'll let you know, and we need you to come say that.
Yeah.
people strangely don't show up for budget retreats. Really very few commenters at them. Julie?
Okay, so if we're gonna start chapter by chapter,
Yeah.
so the first one is growth and land use, right?
Yeah.
Of everything on that list, my recommendation would be to revise the city of Flagstaff zoning, building, fire codes, et cetera, like that. Of everything on that list, that would be the one I pick that I feel like is doable, needs to be done, and really hit some of the two hot topics in our community. It's solid. That would be my suggestion. That's city focused. I don't know if we need to consider both city and county. The county component, I think the J plus piece is pretty important. So
So second.
is that your idea? Like, we want to pick the thing in each,
Those are my top two.
that would be my thing.
Yeah, I'm right with you. That's where.
It's part of my five. But I do think that state land department part
Yeah.
is as high a priority as the code stuff.
That's what I meant about, like, for the
Right.
county piece, I think the J plus plus.
Because if we're looking at trying to get open space or deal with all the parcels that are still out there and what's gonna happen to them, that's really, I think it should be short term as well as continuous. For that one, not something to be put off, but to deal with right away.
Does anyone have any, sorry.
No, that's okay. I'm listening. I'm also making sure Elsa's got what she needs to type. Nope. Does anybody have other ideas or do those feel like the top two?
Yes.
So social and economic systems. This is where the lists get longer, the more we go. I don't know why we have the most strategies on the first chapter, but yeah. It'll get longer. So, you know, we have 13 under social and economic systems, which is a pretty big list, and it networks to a lot of different things. And some of these, I will say, are programs we already have, like we have a coordinated entry program. We certainly look to improve it all the time. And other things we don't have, like we don't regularly do economic impact analyses unless they're required. So there's a real mix in this section, but are there any, and you could have a chapter where you don't prioritize any, you say these are all kind of important, but not the highest priorities.
You know, and the third one down, you say affordable housing. Do you mean affordable housing or do you mean those other kinds, attainable?
One does actually mean affordable housing.
That means subsidized housing.
Yeah, we have an affordable housing incentive policy that is about, you have to provide big A affordable housing, that's like income restricted housing to get.
That's not that's not subsidized housing then.
It is, yeah.
How come I don't have a?
I copied them.
Oh, thank you.
So that's one of my priority ones, and also is
That's fine. I'll get notes.
the updating the affordable housing and incentives.
Highlight it.
What am I missing?
That's on mine.
All of them. So the develop a comprehensive strategy to address infrastructure improvements to support infill development.
Where's that one?
Those are.
Oh, yeah, that one. Yeah, those are my.
Those are my two.
I don't think so.
The incentive policy.
Might want to repeat that.
So what the room suggestion is, and people online, unmute if you want to chime in on this, was that updating the city's affordable housing incentive policy to implement the 10-year housing plan and the last cap recommendations, and developing a comprehensive strategy to address infrastructure improvements to support infill were the two people were suggesting.
So we can't do any of that without expanding financial assistance. It's all well and fine, but we have no program. So I'm just,
Yeah, so there's
if
the
we're gonna
one,
do all that, then we have to find a way to, I'm doing an affordable housing project and it's gonna entail offering financial assistance. If you don't have that, people aren't gonna come. They won't be able to buy their homes, so.
Is that number one that you're advocating for on the list?
yeah, there's number one, and then there's also the explore other funding mechanisms for affordable housing developments, such as a revitalization district and a dedicated sales tax.
Those are more usually about nation districts and dedicated sales tax. So usually more about the infrastructure side, like that's a way to fund infrastructure as opposed to like assistance money is usually from other. Yeah.
So maybe we have 3 for this. It is, they're all about housing,
You'll
right?
have to narrow as you go.
Maybe we want 3 for that.
Yeah.
Housing is
No,
number one.
yeah,
This is a,
emergency.
the big community problem.
Actually, number 1 on the list for.
And if we go to the list and we're starting to hit 20 and we want to go back and
Right.
bump some to medium, that's why I left the column.
Sarah, repeat those.
Okay, create a dedicated funding source for affordable housing, protection, homeowner assistance and displacement prevention in the region. Update the city's affordable housing incentives. Not gonna read all that one. Develop a comprehensive strategy to address infrastructure improvements to support infill in existing neighborhoods. I feel like those are the 3.
It's also about economic systems in this section, but it's very light on anything about economic systems. At a previous meeting, you may recall, we talked about research and technical parks, and you said, I think it's in here, and it wasn't in there, and you said something about, okay, we'll put it in there.
Yeah, there's something in the growth and land use section now that we did. But it's in a policy, so I didn't add anything to this. You're correct.
Okay, so it seems like there should be an action item on that. I mean, it's one of the key opportunities we have to really enhance economic development. We've got a great place out there by the airport to do it. Economic opportunity zones, research and technical firms, there are all kinds of ways to make that a very viable for top quality jobs and development. And I think, to me, we're very remiss in not putting an integrated program.
So it's just missing. You're not saying that it should be a high priority. You're just saying it's missing from the list, which is.
I think it should be a high priority. I think, our ability to, our kids graduate from college here and they all. The technical. Could be. And, we have Gore as a model. The space out by the airport.
Let me ask,
To get affordable housing is to give people great jobs so they can afford housing. No way to do it.
let me ask you about Airport Park and what they have a new economic development strategic plan. I don't remember I think it had not yet or had just been adopted the week before we looked at this chapter. So let me ask them if there's something related to this in there that should be highlighted or referenced, like if there should be a cross reference to something. Cause I feel like that's covered,
I
but
mean, if we put it in here as a high priority item, that's a great way to get support for that in the city council and all the other venues.
you're thinking particularly about the airport park, or you're thinking,
No, I'm
In
saying,
general,
I say put in, research, technical parks, economic opportunity zones, that kind of wording and high priorities. Let the smart people decide the best place for it. I'm saying that as an example. I've heard it talked about a lot, but I was surprised not to see it in here.
Let me go talk to David McIntyre and Craig Zanetko and see what they would add there. We can talk to John Saltonstall of the county and see if there's a unified way to describe that.
Just one of the comments you made resonated with me. Good jobs equals more affordable housing. I mean, so we can come at it from two sides. So I don't know how we get there, but that made a lot of sense.
We move on to transportation.
Yes.
You want the streets master plan in there because you can pretty much already agree on that? They don't need to use up one of our 20 sets already.
It's already.
I mean, I think
Got a number of these.
that's
And I was like, easy check boxes? Yeah.
We put it on the high priority list and then, when they're done, we'll put something else on there. But it really is a high priority. Like all the things we talk about in the transportation chapter are very hard to implement on a project by project basis without this tool. And it's why it's been so cumbersome and difficult to get some things approved because we don't have a cohesive vision. So we're kind of fighting it out project by project instead of really understanding what we want the whole system to look like.
The things that were voted on by the taxpayers in 2018 that still haven't been delivered. So,
Right.
I'm not sure where we even, I don't know how to start with that because everything takes time, and a lot of time.
Yeah.
So that's a consideration we have to take here. We still haven't done 2018. So
We put that in as a high.
how do we do that?
Look at the priorities we have here and see if they fall into them.
It doesn't say 2000.
Yeah, because the 2018 projects are sort of an assumption that they're coming. We have to do them.
We don't want to over.
Yeah, think more further out, like 2030. How do we get through the 2035 and 2045 transportation system we want? I feel like the 2018 tax was built for the 2030 plan. So it was how do we get to 2030? Just think a little further ahead, I think, on the transportation side. What is the next thing?
So I like,
Susie's got her hand up.
oh, sorry, Susie, go ahead.
One of mine is establish rural transit service.
Disagree unfortunately with Susie with that one. I don't think that's a priority.
For the region.
Yeah, I don't think we need to be sending buses out to low density
There's a way.
neighborhoods.
Anyway, that's just one of mine.
Oh, but it sounds like there's other people want to weigh in on rural transit. And just because it's not a high priority doesn't mean it won't happen. Let's just make sure we say that too. Julie.
Yeah, I sat on the Mountain Line board and looked at all of the data and the polling, and Michelle, you were on that too. And some of the challenges with serving rural. And until you reach a certain threshold of population, which I don't think we can project, not gonna achieve, like, it's more of a funding strategy. So when Mountain Line does go out to the voters, it's really focused on frequency of the existing system and more connectivity in the existing system, just based on population served. So I think from that viewpoint, I mean, I hear a lot about transit service and the desire for that, but the logistics of doing that and getting it to where people sit, because it's like it needed to be less than every 30 minutes for people to use transit, and it just doesn't.
What's the little thing that's not quite the same as getting the buses way out there, but these kiss and rides, remember we talked about
Right.
that for the
Yep.
for the strategies, 5-year strategy plan for Mountain Line was to do these kiss and rides like out by County Park, but on city land, or right on the edge, and then people coming in could park there and then go on buses to their work and back again, buses to the mall. And
Yeah,
so-
my
so it
thought-
might be a way to meet it without
Yeah.
actually,
Not having the same kind of service we do in the city,
right, it'd be
but-
different.
but there's different ways.
And that would meet climate goals.
Let me play a devil's advocate question here. Is that a regional plan high priority or a mountain line transit plan priority? Which they can be the same thing, but they can also be different.
Chosen to provide access for everyone for safe and convenient transportation. It's very broad.
In the spirit of Mountain Line, I did have under the code one about updating city codes to set consistent standards for transit capital and calculating transit contributions. I'm starting to think of the undeveloped parcels, and we all saw this with the NAH project, where they're coming in and there wasn't a mechanism to say, okay, we need you to make a contribution to Mountain Line to fund transit to serve it. It was like, okay, we'll build a bus stop. Cool. But that's not the big cost in serving these undeveloped areas that might be developed. Is that the intent of that code? Update city codes to consistent standards for capital, transit capital, and transit contributions. Is that the intent there?
I believe so, yes, that you say like, how do we expect people to be contributing to that? And that's tough because it is, Mountain Line is funded in a very different way than other capital funding is done with the city taxes. So, it's harder to do, planners and the attorneys have to always look at like, what can we actually ask someone for? Like legally, there's restrictions because of the Constitution and the Fifth Amendment actually ask for. But finding a way to be more consistent about it is kind of the best we could think of. And that is say like, how do we tell people like, what are the kind of, bronze, silver and gold medal of contributing to transit for a project, and instead of it being like a one-off negotiation every time. Like that's really what helps get projects moving faster, is when we can be very consistent in applying those. And we're not just showing up with a different list every time.
If I had to pick one, it would be the streets master plan.
The streets master plan, and then I like the snow one. Snow removal. The snow removal will be part of the streets master plan anyway.
Sort of a different operations question.
I read this as, we've been talking, he's been talking about taking away the parking restrictions in the winter. So that's how I read that.
Yes.
It's finding a way to take that away so that
We can use our on-street parking around.
I think that's a good one. I think both of those are. I'm not saying the other ones. Those two, not rural transit.
The sidewalk gap thing seems kind of like a small piece, but going door to door and talking to a lot of people, as I have been a lot as of late, that's the top priority on everybody's mind. So I don't know if it's really relevant for what we're doing here. And it might be more short-term than long-term, but it's also the only one that I see that addresses biking and pedestrian in by name.
I mean, yeah,
That goes back to Tina's comment, though, the 2018 transportation tax. And that includes funding, filling a lot of those gaps. So do we need to include those things in transportation tax in here that were identified? I don't know.
I don't know, and this is I don't know if anyone from transportation is on. Genevieve's on from sustainability. Hold on, I'm just looking to see staff today. I don't think I have anyone from transportation, but let me go ask what percentage of our sidewalk gaps and the crossings are funded by the 2018 money? Because I know the active transportation master plan includes a lot more improvements than we funded in 2018. Right.
Short term with a little bit of mid.
Yeah, it was short term with a little bit of the midterm. But is there anything in the midterm that fits this category that should be a high priority? So I could come back with some more details on that one before we put it in a high priority.
Yeah, I agree with your guys' first two. I just wanted to add some air with that.
Yeah, let me get you a more clarity on what that means from today forward.
Everyone good with this one?
We have two.
Yeah, and
Master plan and snow.
if we break them up into each of the sections, we get like 2.2 per.
And the streets master plan is gonna include a whole bunch of that.
Right.
Can I chime in just from a county staff?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Please go ahead.
No, I was facilitating this.
And I'm kind of looking around and I don't know who all is online, but just to think about who from the county is here today on the committee and thinking about the rural transit question. And it is very much driven by funding, not really and funding and ridership and rooftops and frequency. And so the very specific, data funding driven considerations. But during the comprehensive plan, this is a big issue, not just for the region, but for the county as a whole. So I just want to put it out there to think about those types of connections. It's a quality of life issue. People are living far away and they're coming to work into Flagstaff because of the affordable housing issue. So there's that nexus between our housing crisis, forcing people out to the rural parts of the county, yet they're traveling in. We're just looking at updating our comprehensive plan and understanding, guess what our highest source of emissions are? It's transportation, because people are traveling long distances. So I just put that out there. There's not a great solution, like Julie was saying, it really is a funding choice. On behalf of Mountain Line, we're gonna talk with them specifically about kind of brainstorming ideas on the comprehensive plan side, how we can maybe find more micro transit options. I mean, short of getting a train, let's dream big, but I don't know exactly what to say, how this could work region-wide, but for the plan, the comprehensive plan county-wide, this is also one of the main topics of conversation. So just to throw that out there, it's gonna come up, it's rising to the top.
I've heard it a
I
lot.
wanted to add to that too, because that's where I came from when I worked for the county. I worked for District 4, which is thousands of miles, I'm gonna go way up Cuba City and further, and then way down to Forest Lakes. It's a huge, and it was a big topic when I worked for that district. So that's why, I picked it as number one.
Well, not to belabor the point, but since we're here, I work in middle manufacturing and our lowest tiered employees all come from far, far away to make the least amount of money within the company because they can't afford to live in Flagstaff. All I gotta say.
Well, so let us talk about it a little bit, because one thing we did say is like maybe the county has some standalone priorities, like high priorities for the county versus city might be more breaking out a little bit. So I'll just put it as a maybe for now. But as a maybe that this might be like a county priority. Does that work? And then I'm gonna follow up on the sidewalk gap bike crossing piece.
All right, guys, we're gonna talk about resource.
Who understands Anthony's comment?
No, you said you couldn't. You said
Zero.
you threw the mic down. No one else could use this.
Walk away.
I think that what I would love to see happen is create affordable housing within the Flagstaff city limits, rather than to allow people to commute from 30 miles away because they can't afford.
Yeah.
That is,
Right.
I just wanna,
Yeah, if we were not an important guest of the indigenous nations of the region, I think that would be like unfailable as a point. I think the fact that we've always been a place where people from our surrounding indigenous nations come to work means there is still going to be some rural transit folks, even harder when we're crossing jurisdictional lines onto a reservation where there's federal rules and then we're dealing with sovereign nations. And so there could be challenges there that we haven't even captured, but yeah, like that's the kind of thing that I think could be folded in. But yeah, what's our point? Some people are gonna, it is a really tough one. It's like how we talked about some of the housing stuff and
it's complicated.
Yeah.
Resource stewardship and resilience. Anyone got anything that jumps right out?
Start back. For me, it's convene and develop abatement strategies for the Peaks weed management area. That's because I've been hearing lots of invasive weeds are spreading. There's no one really looking at this now. So things are getting pretty bad to the point where it might be really difficult to do things. And there's the fire risk.
Fire is great.
The fire, so.
I would like to, having done at least one thing with the resource protection overlay, I think continuing to work on harmonizing that to try and balance this very difficult outcomes remains a high priority.
Yeah, I agree. That first item,
Yeah.
very important. On our field trip, those of us who went on it really were
Yeah.
totally persuaded that we need to refine or maybe drastically change the resource protection.
Also applied the next one, the code one. The code ones all kind of go as one, right? Code is one.
Is that the same?
You mean the landscaping regulations and getting them more in line with.
Those are almost the same. You could. It's together.
Yeah, because it's urban forestry best practice.
Yeah.
I can do some lumping and then it becomes a shared, one. Yeah, because the landscaping regulations are another, they're not the RPOPs, but they,
Relationship.
when we require people put vegetation right up against their foundation, that's,
Actually, foundation.
yeah.
Dumb.
That should-
That's dumb. That's some of the
Dumb and-
stuff, this landscaping stuff, even in the county, the stuff they make you do.
We just changed that.
Good.
The integrated watershed management plans, is that fire related stuff?
No, Robert has something in the chat.
Go ahead, Robert.
He said his vote was on the refine the RPO. So integrated resource management plans for watersheds are it's the Bureau of Reclamation process for establishing like a watershed wide program of work. Really. And then when you set
That's interesting. That can't be priority.
Rick, you've been very involved in it. Do you want to describe it better? Or just explain it?
That was a fine.
That's fine. That's what it is. It helps us get funding for lots of watershed projects to have a big plan that says this all makes sense together. It's kind
Some
of,
of that funding, the money that we use for thinning.
thinning can be part of watershed plans, sort of.
Maybe, yeah.
Maybe.
I just wanted to, I wasn't sure whether
Invasive weed management can definitely be part of integrated resource management plan. So it does like have a relationship with the invasive weed.
Well, that's already referenced because we talked about cross land management agencies and local governments, so that's. Anyone else got anything that they really,
I have a question. As much as I like talking about the weeds, creating a historic
not that type of weed.
preservation action plan. Is that anywhere else in the regional plan?
The historic preservation action plan idea.
Yeah.
I mean, in the resource stewardship and resilience section, we do have like a section on historic and cultural resources. This is an idea of like having, like that program has never had a plan. It's just worked off. And Commissioner Dale, who's the head of the Region Heritage Preservation Commission meeting, is here as well today, but there's never been like a plan on like how that program of work could be executed. But is it really critical for the regional plan or is it just a good thing to put down? Cause we would like to do it.
Thank you for that information.
Yeah.
I wouldn't put it as a high priority, but I like it.
Thanks. Keep it on the
No
list.
offense, Emily.
No, I also did not think it was needed to be a high priority.
Definitely in the middle somewhere.
All right,
In the middle, I like that. I'll put it as a medium just to make a note.
Only in the middle.
anyone else got anything else? Or we move on to park?
What did we settle on? We're
We
combining.
had combining the refine and the update landscaping regulations. And then prioritizing convene and develop abatement strategies for invasives.
Oh, so that was the priority.
Yes, that was a priority.
And I guess just the one thing, I don't know if there's a reason to do it, but this integrated watershed management plans is something that's very dear to my heart. And Bureau of Reclamation has many millions of dollars they give away every year. So, I mean, that's not a reason to make it. But
Well, they told us it was.
so is, that's
Putting
not,
in things in here as an excuse to get money was a perfectly valid
well, if
It's true.
action.
it's used to get money, I think that belongs there. I mean, they have,
Where are we at with our
Big bucks.
calendar?
It was 3.
you know,
So that's our 12th if we add that.
Yeah, we're doing fine.
You want
Can
to
we put it as can we put it as optional?
come back to it?
sure. So
Okay.
I'm just raising it.
That will obviously.
All right, Parks and Rec, folks.
Don't worry about it yet. Parks and Recreation and Open Space. This maybe has the second long. Pretty long one, but. I don't know why 2 are highlighted blue. Can't tell you. I don't remember what the blue
Oh, that was
highlights.
the
Oh, one.
So when the C-post tax, when that expired a little while ago, how is the county funding the maintenance of parks and the establishment of new parks? Where is that money coming from since C-post did expire?
There are new parks. I haven't heard of new parks.
I know, but
I think it's just general fund at this point.
so general fund is
I
paying
think
to
so.
maintain what we have.
I
No
think
other
so.
funding is available for establishment of new parks in county lands.
No, I haven't heard of any new projects like that coming along. I mean, they're taking, I mean, we're doing some rezoning on some properties, putting them into open space, the frontier property buildings being demolished, but yeah, there's not a new park era. And that, we have the Parks and Open Space Master Plan, so they may be pursuing some grant funding. County is working on a lot of grants right now.
I had a question. Does leverage available funding to negotiate the purchase of greenfields for the space for J.W. Powell Boulevard extension? Is that actionable or?
It's the one is leverage available funding to negotiate for plans for space and trails in the John Westfall Boulevard extension area.
It's something that we've been working with pros on. The pros is identifying Huffman Tank and kind of the wildlife corridor in that area as a priority. They've set aside $1 million. And then there's other grants that they've been looking for. So is it viable? Yes, but you have to have somebody that wants to sell. And so whether or not we can convince the private property owner to sell their property is a different thing, but it's definitely something we can bring to the table and have a conversation about.
Different than political will or something of that nature.
It's 100% different. I mean, I think the political will is there. I think it's, and I'm not saying that the owner isn't willing to sell. I'm just saying that we can't force them to, and it's not a political action. But the more money you bring to a table, the more enticing it gets. So I actually think that that's a good one to keep in there.
Understanding that's the Open Space Commission's top priority, right?
It is their top priority.
So,
And they've earmarked $1 million for it. And so,
and there's some money, so
yeah, I think that should be, keep it as a priority.
it could be a high one there. 'Cause it's, and to me, it's a short-term thing. We gotta move on it. I don't know, by short term. You guys probably know better when those things are gonna be developed, but some of those lands are gonna be developed soon.
Yeah.
So,
I think where the area where the priority is, there, that likely has a longer lead time, but as we're planning the corridor and doing the specific plan, I think it's good to have that teed up. So it's not imminent, but it's not like, let's push this down too far either.
so keep it as a high priority.
I think so.
That's what I was gonna vote for us.
I have a question. Could we maybe combine the leverage available funding one with the one above it?
Considering pursuing a bond or finance mechanism.
Mhm.
I don't know if those are things to combine. They're really, here, yeah, they're very distinctive. Like, one is like going to the ballot and the other is like negotiating table with planners and.
On the other side, to me, they're looking for funding for the same function.
Yeah, but they're very different like actions.
I think for me, the differentiator is that the bonds is more general, like that's an action item that they want to do. The leverage funding, I think, is very specific to the JW corridor, and that's because open space has identified that as a priority and has already set aside the $1 million for it. So I would agree that it feels like they should be two separate actions, because actually one is more feasible in the near term and the other would take a much longer time. And I hate to slow down one because you've combined it with something that's gonna take a little more time. Just my 2 cents.
About that Arizona state land off Woody Mountain Road.
500.
It's sold.
We don't know what they're,
Be included in that bond.
if it was an area that there was identified a need.
There are no identified significant cultural or natural resources on that property. So following the policies of the plan, would not have prioritized that for open space act.
I would think like something closer to like Pitcher Canyon, where Rose is actually identified needing
We're out in the
trail
Jaylen's area.
access. So like that's, fits all the bills. It's a trail system, it's a cultural landscape. So I picture it being more like that kind of a acquisition.
Or something that's like dark skies and buffering Camp Navajo oriented. Like those would be the bigger priorities, I think, given what we put in the plan in this section.
I'd suggest I'd like to go back to Rick's comment, and I think creating a reserve of money or a funding stream for parks and going parks is pretty critical.
And I think there, I don't know if it includes it, but I think not just the acquisition, but the maintenance. I think that
Yes.
gets lost a lot. So if that is not in that, we need to add maintenance.
Yes, agreed.
Let Amy
It
hang
just
on that.
says initiatives. So
Okay.
it didn't say operation and maintenance, but I think
We should add it, operations and maintenance. Because otherwise, I think that's a problem we're loading up our pros with, is we keep acquiring this stuff, but we're not putting the funding to maintaining it.
Absolutely, for sure.
He's in the same position.
other things under pros, or we're happy with the two? We're at 14 now. There's 1, 2, 3 chapters to go.
Water resource management.
It got kicked out and it's coming back.
I have a question. Their plan, maintain the AD, it's coming from a developer mindset. 100-year adequate water supply, and then right underneath that, complete and update regional water. How we, I don't know how. So
They're totally different
I
county.
understand, but you have to have one to negate the, we have to have one so we can regulate the other somehow. How
Well,
can
we have
a
a 100-year water supply designation.
I know we do, but
Don't have a regional water demand study, or one is underway.
so one's underway, and then after the hydrology workshop we were at the city, it's a very different conversation. It's very tough to get water. So water's very, I'm just saying, I know one's different than the other, but when are we gonna get the regional study? Do we know?
So you were at the River Plateau.
Today, right? I'm sorry, when you're asking about regional studies, are you talking about number 2 here? Well, I was just reading that and it's a great timing on this because we're working on our water resources chapter now for the comprehensive. And it's worded slightly differently, but we did propose to the TAC today that we develop a water resources plan for the entire county. They like the idea. It would obviously require funding, a grant to make it happen. They like the idea, but it could be a comprehensive plan as well and apply into this, but if it's funding, we would have to get a consultant to make that happen. And I don't know, this is just very early stages of what we're putting together. It hasn't even gone to our advisory group yet, so I don't know if that answers your question or not.
So it kind of does, yeah, thank you.
Rick and Tom, hands up, right?
I'd like to see us put a priority on the last one there on that page. Pursuing water resource options, city.
The advanced water treatment and Red Gap Ranch one,
Yep, has to be.
that has to be on the priority.
Okay, yeah, I'm good with that. The third one up from the bottom, assess wildfire trends and develop capital improvement programs and so on and so forth. About stormwater and and when I think that deserves to be a high priority. We have a county study saying that 2,000 buildings could be damaged or destroyed and $2 billion worth of destruction would happen to the city. If we had a serious wildfire flooding, I think that makes it worthy of being up.
Kind of like the idea of having one that's about drinking water, and then one's about the water that we want, and one's about the water we don't want.
Yeah.
Might I suggest, taking a look at the next page, the plan one that talks about various climate change and land use change scenarios? Then evaluating systems, like, is that kind of,
The same on there.
there's a little bit of overlap there.
Could you see a combination? Because I think there's probably some wording that Tom is looking for specific.
Exactly.
I think some of that model, following fires in the last few years. And I think the city has it.
Yeah, I think the way it was described to me, and I'll verify this, is that the wildfire trends is nearer term than the other kind of modeling. It's like the model needs work to be able to produce that. Does that make sense?
Combining them may not be.
Yeah, they're not the
may
same.
make sense. I can see some, I see the differences. I see a little bit of overlap. If we're just trying to pick one, let's try to get it,
Yeah.
get it all into one.
Robert, do you want to talk about the comment you put in the chat?
Sure. My voice, vote is for the ADWR 100-year water supply designation, because in order to get that, it's going to encompass a lot of different things that at least you can put a task force together and say, hey, go get this certification. And it's something that we could actually achieve.
The city has this certification now. It's just we maintain it every couple of years. Aaron writes a new report to ADWR and confirms we're still on basically the trajectory that we said we would be in. So I don't know if that changes how you feel about it. It's not that it's not important, but we're already there. We're just in a maintenance mode for it.
Understood. I'd still like to stand by my vote there.
Okay.
I'm with Tom between the two of them.
Too.
Wildfire trends. If I had to pick. Is the one. Under stormwater.
Two now. Section.
Well, I think right now I have stars by 3. I have Robert's motion for the ADWR water supply. Just keep that at the top, even though we know it's continuous. Assessing wildfire trends and then continuing to pursue water resource options, which also you could argue is part of our 100-year water supply designation. Like, it's important, but it's kind of a subtask. It could be a subtask.
I'm fine
The
with
water
all.
supply designation by making sure we're maintaining our resources and expanding.
Could also end up with 21.
Right.
Well,
It's a lucky number, by the way. So says Vegas.
Yeah.
Should we move on to energy, folks?
Sure.
I'm sorry.
We run out of this.
Just put a maybe in the spring water, the springs
Well,
identification.
yeah.
Those are
Go ahead.
valuable assets. You mentioned that without having them mapped, people are building on them and so things that ultimately lead to their degradation and also cost to the doing stuff. So if we have room, I'd like to put that on the wait list.
Like 3 yeses and a maybe. G.
It's on the next page, folks.
It's not done on one. Take some room for infrastructure and public safety. Doing a good job. We're on time, people.
How did you prioritize these? Kind of like, they don't go in like what you think that's the.
No, they're totally random. They're not prioritized right now.
Just check.
And when you give me this list, I'm gonna take it back to staff and be like, are these feasible for our top 20 priorities, and check if there's any reason they can't be. Well, actually, there's a big hang up in even trying to get that done, and let me tell you that, like, I'm not the subject matter expert on that, but it'll go back to subject matter experts and directors.
Yeah, so even though the process might seem a little ad hoc at times, it's really.
We'll get it scrutinized. We want to hear what your priorities are though, so we can take that to them, because you've been, you probably spent more time with the draft plan than even the staff have in some departments, so getting that sense from you, I think, is important. No, just look up there. It's doing it automatically. I don't feel that for some reason.
Energy now?
Yes.
Yes.
A lot of it's on the second page.
Well, it's a quiet moment here. Can I make a comment about it?
About the strategy list.
Yes, on the strategy list. One thing I'm, the fuel switching, item in there and
Which one is that? Sorry.
number 1.
Okay.
And I'm not trying to vote on these. I just want to raise red flag, I guess, about things, going to fuel switching and, all electric heating and so forth for housing. There is a, kind of a hidden danger there that we, and I've talked to you about this, having a cutout box in here about this. As we switch to electric heating for Flagstaff and electric appliances, and as we go to wind and solar as the energy sources, in my mind, we're sort of creating a perfect storm of having, switching to a variable and somewhat unreliable power source. If we look at California and Hawaii, they're ahead of us in switching to all electric, to switching to wind and solar. And they're having significant problems with power outages. My wife owns property on the Big Island, and we get newsletters from there, and they're having major problems with their renewable energy sources. They've got significant power outages frequently now. But that's Hawaii. So, and the same with California, the climate is different. We've got, I think, a triangle of more probability of power failures coming. Switching to all electric heating, having very cold winters. I think that tripod of situation is a danger to us. And we need to, if we're going to go in this direction, and obviously we are, it's big priorities here, need to somehow alert the population, alert the developers that we need backup heating or backup energy sources in our homes. So I've suggested, Sarah, that we put a cutout box in there saying this is something we need to do. I mean, I think we would be remiss if down the road, if, we have a combination of those things, power outage, ultra cold situation, large number of homes with only electric heat, that's a real existential danger to a lot of people.
You might have been at that city council meeting where they were preparing us for that. They were saying we're going to start doing tests on power outages because they're going to happen, right, in the future. And I also wanted just to bring up a point while we're on it, that it's not necessarily us that is part of this. It's our energy company that's changing.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
I mean, it's
And Tom, that topic is actually addressed under infrastructure and public safety. It's not the last one because it's the last, but it's the last one I wrote in that list. But based on our conversations, we do have a strategy that says update preparedness, educational materials, ensure that the ongoing renewable energy transition is adequately reflected, sheltering in place, particularly for all electric homes and other green buildings. Okay, it's all the way, I hit it at the end in another chapter because when I took that back to like fire and the operations people, they said that's a preparedness issue. What that is you've got to get that messaging included. You've got to let people know what kind of temporary heaters are safe. We've just like with fire season where we tell people how to get a go bag together, we've got to offer programs where people can get the little $20 portable heater for free, or, you know, that they said that's a preparedness issue. So they asked me to put it in this chapter, not the energy chapter, though it's one of those ones where the Venn diagram is real and it kind of relates to both.
I have a question.
Yes.
The last one talks about engaging in efforts, which including integrated resource planning process. I don't know what that is, to increase clean and renewable energy. Is that
APS's integrated resource planning process. I can put APS in front of
okay?
that.
That would be helpful, because when I read it, I thought maybe it was talking about community choice.
No, that's not the community choice one.
There isn't a community choice one in here.
No, because community choice is not really a plan issue. It's not a land use issue.
A land use issue. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, community choice is an important energy issue, but not a land use issue, which is, remember, we had that conversation. Good, great topic.
The reminder.
I'll propose that one of our priorities, I would, it's number 3, code, revise and review existing city codes, et cetera. And the next one I think could be merged, regularly review and update building codes so they reflect changing technology. I'd say merge those, and that should be a high priority. And next high priority would be.
We'll try and figure out how to merge them without making them longer.
Yeah.
Shorter.
Make it shorter.
Okay, Genevieve heard that and her hand is up, so.
And then update the next one, update the city, require newly constructed city buildings to be built to net zero energy standards. The city's not setting an example for the rest of us, you know.
Where did I put that one?
It's the very next one, update the city,
Sustainable building.
yeah, requiring newly constructed, the part that's important to me is require newly constructed city building.
Requiring us to have net zero, new residential buildings to be net zero within the next 6 years is a pretty big.
Yeah, it's just, well, these are goals.
But I was
Obviously, these are not going to be
I wanted
achieved.
to ask you, Paul, how do you feel about the updated thing, the second one that you wanted? Against the one below it, modernizing renewable energy to technologies, whatever, water plant, blah, blah, blah. See that, the one just below it?
Oh.
I guess I should read it out loud, I'm sorry.
Some of that's happening with the bond.
Okay.
Past a couple years. Some of it's not nearly enough, but it's a start.
Yeah,
You don't see it as much as a priority? It's a question to you.
so I think that is important. I've talked to the city people and I think they're on board with it.
A lot of energy.
So I don't know if we need.
Okay.
Well, Genevieve has her hand up. I don't know if she wants to address this or something previously, but Genevieve, do you want to?
Yeah, I actually had just Tom's comment previously, just wanted to comment on that. And then I'm happy to answer any additional questions about what you're talking about now. But we're talking about resilience and having backup power source, which absolutely is great. And even if you have a gas furnace, if the power goes out, it won't work because you won't be able to run your fan. So I think the need for having backup power, whether your house is a gas furnace or electric, there's a need for that regardless. And this kind of goes back to a previous chapter. It was the resilience and research stewardship and resilience chapter. And there were some resilience goals there, and none of them made it to the high priority strategies here. So I just wanted to since that's clearly a priority for some folks, and I would think for everybody to a certain extent, just wanting to make sure that that's not getting lost in this conversation. And if there are any resilience sort of goals that aren't, or strategies that aren't on here, to reconsider, just pointing that out. And then I have been following the conversation, but there's a lot of chatting. So what were your questions about more recently about the strategies that you're looking at right now?
You want to try and like summarize the relationship between the third, fourth, and fifth bullet, our lines in the table and what we're talking about? What do you want me to try?
Try and I'll time.
Okay, why don't I try and you tell me if I got it wrong?
It's my bedtime, so I'll do my best.
Why can't it be my bedtime? Okay, so.
I would like, can I try? I'd
Sure,
like
you try.
to,
Whoever wants to go.
I'd like to do the first sentence of the third one, where it says, review and revise existing city code plans and processes to achieve carbon neutrality by 2050. And have that then go to the next one saying through updating building codes so they reflect rapidly changing technology, et cetera, et cetera. And then actually, I think you could do the third one separate because it's specific to city buildings.
Yeah.
Higher standard.
I think the question was, Genevieve, the city, I had this question earlier from somebody too, I think, the city sustainable building resolution, does it include the water treatment facilities or are they a separate thing?
Yeah, Sarah, I actually just saw that comment just now and it's on my list to look into. So let me get back to you on that one. I will say that the Sustainable Building Resolution, it has been around for a while and it was updated a couple years ago. And so there's always opportunities to update it. So I think that's what this strategy is getting at, just that we can continue to update to require, again, new city buildings and major remodels to meet standards. And that kind of goes back to the previous strategies that David was combining, where we're talking about rapidly changing technology and everything. So we're trying to keep that nimble. So let me get back to you on that one, Sarah. But I do agree with David's combination that the 2 and 3 and 4 are kind of related and you can definitely combine those, but that number 5 really does deal with municipal major remodels and new buildings, and that would make more sense to be separate.
I think what I do remember, and I do want to let Genevieve research it, is that it is a lot harder to make our water treatment plants net zero because they are such big power users, but we all like our water clean. So I don't think we're willing to trade that off. It's definitely not the lowest hanging fruit, making facilities available. Kind of like the pool heater at the Aquaplex is another really difficult one because heating a pool is very costly and energy consumptive.
It's over.
This one doesn't talk about net zero, it just talks about appropriating renewable energy, innovative technology for Wildcat and stuff.
Yeah. I don't know if we can make Wildcat net zero or.
No, I wasn't thinking net zero, just incorporating new technologies. So it uses less power.
Yeah.
There's a lot that
Yeah.
are.
Just a quick question about the year 2030. So our plan starts at 2030 and goes to 2045. So is it technically appropriate to put something in there that says completed by 2030 when our plan starts?
The carbon neutrality plan doesn't expect to be completed by 2030. It expects to reach a certain metric and then reduce offsets as you go. So we'll be continuing to revise and reduce offsets through 2045.
Technically, would it It's just to leave the year out or say we're gonna.
Yeah, to just say like to achieve carbon neutrality, because we already said by 2030 in the goal, essentially. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay. Because it
Thanks,
could be,
Sarah.
I can see what you're saying. It could be confusing to have it say by 2030 in the strategy and then have it midterm. And then have a separate.
Hey, Sarah, one question, just that because the carbon neutrality plan is adopted by city council and those are adopted policy goals, and obviously that plan is a different plan than this plan, but they do relate. I think there is some benefit in keeping them consistent, but I do understand that they do have different time horizons to a certain extent.
Got two for this one, right? Does that mean we can move on? How many do we have total?
Robert has his hand up.
Oh, go ahead, buddy.
Online hand.
Thanks. Going through a lot of these, the only one that I really like is the supporting solar cooperatives that assist residents in obtaining solar electricity for lower price. And the reason I like that is because I'm a big fan of utility scale projects because they are generally more efficient and provide more benefit for more people at a lowered shared cost. That's my 2 cents.
Those solar cooperatives, so they're possible to do in the city, they're very fitting rural strategy, right, Melissa?
Sarah, I can speak to that a little bit.
Jackie.
So, the Sustainability Office, we do work with Solar United Neighbors to have solar co-ops, and the only ones that but basically, I think we're going to be on number 4 that's gone through Flagstaff, but it's not utility scale solar. So it is basically getting a bunch of residents together who are interested in solar, and then companies have a bid to provide solar on all of their rooftops, and then they select those companies and ideally get it for a cheaper price. So I believe that's what this is talking about. I don't think it's talking about utility scale solar.
Then I'll retract my statement for that.
Currently applied to cities. But yeah, the big utility scale renewable projects are going on in the county and thousands of acres.
Just a point of clarification, what is a renewable energy incentive district?
Just
It's the second to the last recommendation.
I think you've got the.
Yeah, I know a bit about it. The county doesn't have one, but this is actually something that is enabled by the state. And I believe that Tucson has one, for instance, or maybe Pima County, where we've actually identified certain properties that are suitable for essentially rapid permitting or reduced permitting fees. So they've gone through an analysis, selected properties that would be good locations for solar or wind, and, like pre-identified them so that if a developer wants to come in, get faster permitting. So it's something that the county, we did not go in that direction at the county. Instead to develop, to apply to different scenarios. So but it's available if the city wanted to pursue it by statute.
And would biomass qualify as a renewable for that?
Good question. I don't know. To see if it addresses biomass. No, it specifically talked about solar and wind. Then you might know more about that.
Have you looked at that authorizing language? Do you know it? Are you familiar with it? She might be looking it up right now.
Table that one and get later.
I'll put biomass question mark.
Yes, please.
We move on to infrastructure and public safety. Then how many total?
Yeah, Elsa.
This would be our 20th. We're at 19. That includes all the maybes.
Well, that's doing great.
The
first 8 under infrastructure and public safety are really important.
Yeah. Knock back your meetings.
Say one thing, because partnering, I mean, those are things that we should just be doing all the time. I think they're important, number one, but they just, to me, we shouldn't have to list them.
So let me say this about partnering. partnering requires like funding and commitment and staff time. And it is sometimes something that gets not deprioritized, but when there's vacancies or other things, it can be the kind of thing people are putting on the side. If it's self-sustaining or if it's falling apart, any agency involved might go, well, this isn't my thing to save, right? So I do think it's valuable. I mean, I would keep partnering things on the list, but when you prioritize them, it would say, don't let this one fail. Like, be leaders in this one. It's really important. And so I would say there still can be a higher priority. Probably fewer of them are high priorities and none of them would necessarily be low, but they do sometimes have complications. They're kind of are falling apart a little bit, or whoever was the convening body might not have staff to convene. It's just the kind of thing that happens with this interagency partnering all the time, right?
Well, so to me, those should be number one then. Those two partner ones, because I just think it's really important for
Well, in
the,
infrastructure and public safety, the partnering stuff can be
it's huge.
more important in this category than some of the other ones for sure. So are you stating that you think the three partner ones in here are the priorities that negotiate the coordination of public safety and emergency management through mutual aid agreements, pursue cooperative and coordinated planning for infrastructure between all government agencies, and then continue to support FWPP in the fry and other landscape scale forest treatments?
Yes, so. I like some other ones too, though, you know.
What's that first one mean?
I think you could leave out the mutual aid agreement partnering because that's already done. There's automatic aid agreement between the city and numerous fire districts around. There's mutual aid agreements. Every fire agency in northern Arizona to respond to each other. There's a statewide mutual aid agreement that covers agencies statewide. That partnering is already there.
Did you take it off the list or you just wouldn't?
Take it off the list altogether.
And if we're gonna,
Second one.
if we're gonna do that, then goal is yours. The resiliency hub, we already got funding. We're gonna tag team on that, but
Yep.
if you look at priorities on the right, it's short term. So if we're gonna talk about priorities, we've got short term that's already either been done, in process, or what are we really chasing?
But we're definitely not done with the resilience hubs. I just want to say that.
We're not done with
Like
it.
starter one.
Yeah.
Like start,
Yeah,
right,
so
but we can. What does the first one mean? Cooperative and coordinated planning of infrastructure. What's that mean?
So
Buildings?
critical really means critical infrastructure that we are, when we're planning for all the infrastructure that supports public safety. Like a good example is like the Leap Center where there's the juvenile detention center and the sheriff's office and the police station are all together. That's just something we want to keep doing. It's like, how often can we be co-locating and putting those pieces together?
You, Tom.
They're all important, I know.
I
Well-
don't even know.
Seems like we've got some, I mean, if I think about immediate community threats, then it seems to me the continued high priority of implementing the Flagstaff Watershed Protection Project and the immediate thinning around the community is high priority.
WUI one? Yeah, probably one that talks about WUI.
Well, there are kind of several. There's FWPP, and then you've also got Fry.
Yeah.
Because you both need to fund it and you need to participate.
So some of them are outside the city and some are in the city.
That's right. But they're definitely regional. I mean,
Educate, I mean, they're together.
Educate, right,
Really,
exactly.
they're all three, so.
So point me to
yeah,
the.
you're right, the first aid. We're doing so well.
Johnson, yeah.
So what I heard was the first fund one at the top of the second page, the first partner one and the first educate one. Feel like they are the top three for you, Diane. Correct.
Yeah.
And not the WUI?
launch site?
No, to expand and support risk reduction in the wildland urban interface. Too. I mean, it's kind of a different scale because
Yeah.
I see that as more in the bound of the city or in the city.
That seems more generic. Specificity if we've already got this funding train that's left the station. WPP and
Some of that's gonna be in.
I like the three that Diane mentioned. I agree with that.
I think, next, the one next to the bottom, develop resources to support fire management innovations that align with community risk reduction initiatives. This should be a high priority. I think anything we can do to have innovative firefighting capability and my priority on. That's our biggest risk. Fire.
And do you see that in any of the ones you suggested?
so that one is specific to innovations.
Sure.
But I recall the discussion around that, and your interest was in making sure that people were current with the emerging best practices of that community. I'd say the first one, the implementation of that is funding. That's a little different than that. Partner.
At least I don't see anything in here about. We're talking about public safety and I don't see one thing in here about.
Yeah, it's land use, that's right. I guess I would still like to advocate for continuing the full implementation of the watershed protection project as a high priority. And also, or maybe just do number 3 as our, since FWP's in there. Not say continue to fund and support. And just merge those two. Yeah.
Can I ask just a question on structure? Infrastructure and public safety is the last item here, last thing. I was interested in list order priority.
Who said it was the last one she wrote, so that's why it was at the end.
What's that?
Sarah said earlier it was the last one she wrote, that's why it was at the end.
Right. So this is not the list that's going to be, this is not the way it's going to be organized in the draft that we get?
This is the order of the chapters.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, but
List order priority is something I think that's important and we can consider. Put it last here, we addressed it last, so we got down at the end, we only had room for one more. People, when they read something and see something, what comes last is least important.
We can argue about that next.
Yeah. Off to next.
then we can totally talk about chapters.
I agree that we should table it to next.
But thank you for raising the point, so I know you want to talk about it.
We all done with this section?
How many did we get?
Bill heard this, Tom, because I know this is a succession that you really care
Oh,
about.
With 2, yes.
There's 3. Yeah.
Wait, 1, 2, maybe 22, you got to 20.
We gotta go with it. Yeah.
Time for the middle, guys.
Yeah.
No?
Right.
Yeah.
And then we'll talk about it.
While we do yoga, let's go.
Hot yoga or just regular yoga?
It's gonna get hot here.
It's already hot, so. All right, guys, we have a couple more items before we can wrap up. So I'm talking about the urban growth boundary review process and how that can happen. There's some changes there. We've got public participation. If we have anyone online or someone wants to speak.
online.
I thought you had to be in the room.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
think
we
we're
were doing online.
it.
You're right. Wait, okay.
Remember the protocol. We've been on break. So.
And then just a summary, so.
Yep. Great. So urban growth boundary review process. So you know what I've been telling you guys since March, that we've been meeting with water services and talking about the urban growth boundary. They are working at the same time on updating their utilities master plan. So since they're master planning and we're doing this, there's been a lot of back and forth and discussion. We had a meeting that included deputy city managers a few weeks ago, and we decided that this decision of the urban growth boundary and how it's going to be implemented should really go to the Water Commission. They need to see this in the context of the work they're doing on their master plan. And there was also the sense that council is likely going to want to weigh on it. So right now it is scheduled for the Thursday, September 19th Water Commission. And we have a meeting tomorrow and next week to kind of confirm some of that with them. I can just tell you roughly, right now, there was no appetite to change the boundary of the urban boundary. But there is the discussion that we want to have is how strict should the urban growth boundary be? Should it be, the current plan says any changes to the urban growth boundary are a major plan amendment. Unless you're just adding open space inside of it and it's not anything that's actually getting served. But the Schultz water line extension and other community conversations have said we maybe need to look at a more nuanced view of, is that the right policy going forward? And so the goal is to take that to the Water Commission on the 19th, and everyone here is invited to attend that meeting and participate or write comments to the Water Commission, and then to set it to City Council. If we've already kind of worked through the plan, then the committee wouldn't see that again necessarily, because I'm not including it in the document until it's been through both of those. But I will send everyone the staff report when it goes to the Water Commission, so you have it, and make sure you have the opportunity to participate there. So it's not, we're not remapping the urban growth boundary, just keeping it right where it is and talking about how hard should it be to change the line and work on the edges of the line. In other words, like how much flexibility should be provided in it. And we've changed this decision over time. It was moderately flexible in the 2001 plan, and then the 2014 plan made it pretty firm. And maybe this is the just right. We're trying to figure out what the just right porridge looks like here. Because it feels like maybe it was too harsh or maybe it was too light. Like, how do we get that right? But it's very technical in terms of like what it means for the water system and the utility planning as a whole.
Been taken over our head.
I mean,
The takeaway.
I would say it's been to the appropriate commission who should
Yeah.
be weighing in on this first.
yeah, the city, the staff wants to take it to the Water Commission because they are the water experts and know their own policies the best. But like we said, invited to participate both at the city council meeting and at the Water Commission meeting.
On the 19th.
The 19th of, Thursday, the 19th will be when Water Commission talks about the urban growth boundary.
At 4 p.m.
I think it's at 4. That's what I
I'm not so
understand.
sure, but I think it is.
When their agenda gets published, I'll send it out to everybody. Make sure you guys know when it is and what's happening. That makes sense and why.
Sure. Are you asking us to show up at this thing or?
I'm saying that if you want to go listen and participate and provide comments to that commission, the committee will have the ability to do that. I don't know that you will ever get a chance to endorse that. If the Water Commission and Council endorses it, then I don't know the committee has a,
It's after our meeting, right?
we'll talk about that in a second too.
Ready, let's talk about that. Second is here.
You want to talk about that or do you want to do public participation?
There's no public participation.
There is
not want to participate.
Okay, thanks. All right. So our next meeting, we have scheduled currently for September 16th. I only have 1/3 of the legal review completed on the draft plan. And now that you guys have all given me some more feedback, I have more things to incorporate. My original hope had been to get you this draft plan on the 4th. So you would have at least a week and a half to look at it. But also Michelle and others talked at the break about maybe that's not enough time. So I'd like to discuss if we can move the 16th meeting back to September 30th. What that does is give me very little time between when you review it and when I have to get it out if we're gonna do the October 20th start to the 60-day public review. So it's squeezing me on that end. So I think if we're open to changing the date, and that's not a date that excludes a significant portion of the committee, I'd ask a couple things. I'd be shooting to get you the full draft by the 11th. And what I would ask is that you, as you're reviewing it, think very carefully about what you would like the agenda to look like on the 30th. Because we have 3 hours and 180 pages worth of material that we've touched as a group at least once. So I would ask that in advance of the 30th, you provide me any of your like editorial comments or rewording kind of comments get provided, not in the meeting, but also that you let me know, and I will let David and Anthony know, like, what are the things you want to hear the group talk about? Like, I'm betting we're going to talk about transportation again, just because I don't know that we're totally settled in it, and I totally rewrote that chapter after your last review of it. Like, I rewrote it start to finish in a lot of ways, so I'm just gonna say that's probably gonna be a chunk of our time. There's probably growth and land use things that I'm adjusting, they'll be part of your time, but if there's other things besides growth and land use and transportation that you'll think you wanna be spending time on, that you let me know. And I'll try then to make an agenda that really thinks through how we're gonna work through those things efficiently, so you don't have to have a second meeting. Because if you have to have a second meeting and you don't feel like you could finish it in 3 hours and you can't get to an endorsement, that we won't have much time to plan a second meeting. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so maybe I'll speak spur of the moment in favor of keeping our meeting on September 16th. If you can get it to us on the 4th, that's 12 days.
Well, I probably will get it to you on the 11th because I need
That's
to do
5
a
days.
review. Yeah.
Days, you know, if I put it on my calendar, 5 days, you know, I'm not gonna spend 5 days doing this. I need maybe 8 hours would be the max, and I'll find it in 5 days. I guess I'd like to give us time to do another meeting later, and I think if we push it out to the 30th, that's kind of our deadline. That's my spur of the moment reaction. I'm willing to be shot down.
I'm with Sarah. I think that I could actually digest everything in 2 weeks because I'm a slow reader.
So that,
But I would be okay with.
well, I'm okay either way, I guess. I just, you know, there's downsides, push the deadline, and then it's like, well, we're done, you know. Whatever.
Is a fast processor, slow processor discussion, right? Susie.
I'm okay with the 30th. Yeah, but on that prioritization, that's gonna go in the plan, right?
Yeah.
So then when is the rest of it gonna get filled in? The low, medium, whatever?
I'll ask staff to work with me on that.
Okay, so that'll be the whole draft when we see it then, okay.
Well, staff may also move some things down if they go, actually, we're not gonna get to that. But there's reasons that won't happen. This gives us a way to start that conversation.
In respect of staff time, I'd say don't even do it low. You know, I mean, this is just a list of high priority. Yeah, I think if we can do that.
Like high and other.
Yeah. Well, yeah, don't even call it.
I'll find that probably just happens anyways.
And we're just prioritizing some things. This is our priority list. And I'd be happy if we do that. I don't want to argue for a minute about it. Lower, medium.
That's the thing.
Me too, but maybe I'm not clear, then if you do that, then how do you, I mean, is it, you think there's 1, 2, 3? I'm not sure how you prioritize if you don't do that.
Well, we've got 22 here. No, we're saying these are 22 high priorities. So,
So if everything's a high priority, nothing's a priority.
no, No, those are the,
Another 111.
The rest of that.
Oh, okay, okay.
That's what he said.
Yeah.
I see.
Okay.
yeah.
That's,
No, no, okay.
You've got 20 things.
just those things.
We all
Okay.
have communication there, okay.
No, we clear.
All right, great.
Yeah, I heard two, like, let's just try and get it all done on the 30th, and I heard one, like, that we could do the 16th and have the 30th as the overflow. Things have been really efficient, I have to
I'll
say.
live with either one. I just thought we should discuss it.
Fine with the 16th as well too, because if you have an extra date, but I don't think anybody's gonna wanna come back whether.
Is there a compromise possible? We've got the week of the 23rd there. I don't know whether that's viable or not.
We can, David and I confirmed on our calendars, and we have opposite schedules that week, so
Um,
we wouldn't be able to have two of us at least for most of those days.
If it's the 30th, when do you plan to send us the draft?
The 11th is what I'd be shooting
The
for.
11th.
I
And
like,
that's also the day I would send it to the graphic designer and the writer editor for them to start flowing it into the design, but we could still be talking while they're doing that.
I'd appreciate more time too, I think.
Raise the hand, raise your hands if the 30th works for you then.
Online, I see Robert said the 30th's good, Ally. Kim, I saw Kim just did a thumbs up. Ally's okay with either date. Okay, looks like the 30th. So I will move it from the 16th to the 30th. It will give you more time. I'll also say, if you're getting more time, you should feel free to contact Melissa and Elsa and I and ask questions. So your questions are answered, and when we show up on the 30th, we are talking through the really meaty stuff you think we need to dive into.
so you will give us the plan on the 4th, so like,
Yes.
when does it go to the community?
On October 20th, starts the 60-day review.
Can we share with our friends?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you can encourage people to come to the meeting on the 30th and participate if they want. They don't have to, but they can write emails in advance and let them know. We'll put it on the website, just like any of your packets.
Yeah, when does that happen?
11th.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. It'll just be an early packet. That gives me more time to finish legal review, really make sure everything's tucked away. That's it for me.
I have a really quick two from, so for all of you who really wanted to do something on the 16th, I'm thinking about having the regional plan recording sesh on the 14th or 15th. It'll be downtown Flagstaff and the artist, I don't know the name of them, but where Shanto's little den is above, across from Heritage Square. It's in one of the artist studios there. I'll be contacting all of you. I expect probably one of you to show up. I would love it if all of you showed up. Just to say we are regional planning on repeat in your own voice, so we could add you to the fray. Good.
Great.
Thank you, everyone, for your time tonight.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
We'll review. Send any comments. person for this, and
I mean, if you were the wrong person, I wouldn't have emailed you.
yeah, no, I know, but I was like thinking, oh, there could be somebody better who can like talk about